Hi there, I'm Lee, welcome to iMineBlocks. In this video I'm going to be talking about why it's now tougher than ever for your GPU or crypto mining efforts and what you can do to help alleviate those problems. So I've obviously been doing this for a few years and I've kind of been through this tough time situation before back in sort of 2013, 2014. I picked up a bit of experience back then. So I'm going to share some thoughts and ideas, suggestions to help you guys get through this tougher time. So why is mining now currently tough? First of all, you guys need to understand that mining as it's been for the last sort of year and particularly in the last sort of 6 months has probably been easier than it's ever been before. It's been incredibly easy, profits have been huge and everyone's been having a good time. We've all been drinking the Kool-Aid, it's been great. But now we're heading into a real tough times. So the reason for that is two primary reasons. One is the crypto coins price on the market. So right now, all of the coins are down relative to what they have been previously. Over the last couple of months, we had a bit of a boom period. So looking back through December, all the coins were up in price. They're now down, 50% or more for a lot of the coins. So that's obviously affected the earnings on, the crypto coin price basis. The other big issue is because the prices were so high originally back last year, that encouraged a lot of new miners to come into the mining space. So now there is kind of a twofold issue. There is a lot more miners chasing the same rewards, but those rewards are now worth less because of the pricing. So the two main contributing factors, and that affects all of us equally. So I expect this tough mining period is probably going to last for at least for a couple of months, maybe 6 months, hopefully no longer than that. And you're going to see quite a few different changes. What you will see is that a lot of miners are going to be sort of selling off their hardware, and the reason for that is because they've kind of jumped on the back of the bandwagon, and a lot of those guys would have been jumping in sort of late November and December. They've probably bought a load of hardware, it's going to be really expensive for them, and now within just a couple of months they're kind of realising this is not all it was kind of cracked up to be. So a lot of that hardware is probably going to be going up for resale. So hopefully the gamers will be slightly happier in the near future. But let's talk about mining for us regular guys, and if we're going to continue with it, how exactly can we do that, and what's the best kind of a course of action for us guys to take. So firstly, let's take a look at what is your mining appetite. So what do I mean by your miner's appetite? It really depends on when you kind of join the market. Me personally, I've obviously been doing this for quite a few years, so I'm kind of in a flow with these higher points and lower points in the market, and also profitability and stuff like that. So I kind of roll with it, and it obviously flows up and down. Sometimes you have good months, sometimes not so good months, and I'm perfectly happy with that. A lot of other guys will kind of, like I say, they've jumped in November, December period. Those guys are going to be having a much tougher time because they're not used to the areas where you're not making as much profits as you have been recently. So for you guys, it's something for you to sort of think about. If there was no profit in GPU mining, could you continue to run your rigs? So a lot of people probably wouldn't, because the electricity costs are prohibitively expensive. So for a lot of people, if you're not making a direct profit, then you're probably not going to be able to afford your electricity costs. So for you guys, you've got some decision making that you need to make. You need to decide whether you can continue to run even if there's no profit. Could you just mine and hold those coins and wait for the market to turn around? If you can't, then you probably should consider either shutting off all of your mining hardware completely and just kind of basically put it in stasis, put it on hold. Or you should also consider selling off your GPUs. Now, it's not something that I recommend lightly, but that's only if you cannot cover your electricity costs, via any other means. So if you've got any other incomes and you can run, rigs even on a part-time basis, then I'm not suggesting that you sell your hardware. But if you're really in a bit of a bind, you can't run your rigs, you can't afford to free your electricity, then, consider selling off some of your GPUs now, because as the next month goes on, if it continues like this, the GPUs will only be worth less. So that's something that you consider, or maybe do a hedge and maybe perhaps sell half and keep half, and then kind of balance it out that way. But that's only for extreme circumstances. Hopefully it doesn't affect too many of you guys. Like I say, if you don't sell your GPUs now, they're probably going to be worth less in the future. right now we're going through like a transition period. So consider if you wait, weeks or months, they're probably going to be less in the future. So consider that. Of course, that's just my estimate how I think things will go out. Things could always turn around. So the next point is, assuming you want to continue carry on mining, what things can you do to increase your chances of success and profitability over the foreseeable future? So one of your top priorities, and you should have already have done this, but like I said, because it's been so easy for us miners, a lot of people will not have. So you want to focus your efforts on securing the lowest possible electricity costs. There's a couple of different ways that you can do this. And it's really important because this will make or break your operation. I mean, you've already invested in your GPUs, your hardware, and that's effectively kind of money just sitting there. You can sell those off at any time, and you kind of, you might make some money there or not. But your running costs are really what's going to, make or break your operation. So it's super important. So if you haven't already done so, phone your electricity company, or go on to like price comparison websites. We have them here, they're quite popular in the UK. I'm not too sure for other countries. But phone your electricity provider, get on the comparison sites and see if you're getting the absolute best deal that you possibly can. The changes in cost from one provider to the other are quite dramatic. You could quite easily get a 20 to 30% difference in price. I know in the UK, when I changed from, this was quite a few years ago now, but changing from British Gas to Ovo Energy, there was a dramatic price change. So shop around and ensure that you are getting the best possible deal. There's all sorts of different tariff rates and different rates, but make sure you're obviously on the best rate. I'll be willing to bet a lot of you guys are not even sure what you're actually paying for your electricity. So find that out and see if you can get a better deal. So another thing is with tariffs from your electricity provider. Sometimes, I'm not too sure, again, if they do it in other countries, but in the UK, they had like an Economy 7 and an Economy 10 electricity plan. And essentially what that means is that you have a lower night rate electricity cost. So if you have that, or maybe that could be a good option for you, check that out. It might mean that you can kind of run your rigs over night time at a much lower electricity cost, and then maybe leave them off in the day or run them on a part-time basis during the daytime. But you might not even be aware of that. So see if your tariff, your electricity rate, has a peak demand premium and an off-peak kind of reduction. That might affect only just a few people, but it's worth checking out. The other options for you in terms of securing your lower electricity costs are in the UK and other sort of regions. There is benefits and perks for using solar or wind generated power. So see if there's any sort of grants available to you. There might be some sort of a government incentive where you can use that kind of incentive to refit solar panels or something like that on your house to get a efficiency. Obviously you can then use that power however you wish, but that might be an option for you. Moving on from that, you can also look into renting small units. This is for slightly larger operations, but this is something I've done previously. I had a small sort of office space, and I used that for business, but I could also use that for just a couple of miners. Bear in mind that obviously as we are moving into the summer, it's going to get increasingly hot. So if you have a small office space, you're going to be pretty limited to what you can have in there, but it's worth checking out if you can, make use of that extra space. The other thing is, see if there's any other local businesses, friends or family, anything like that have a workspace with power included. If they run a business, they might have preferred electricity rates as a business. So they might be willing to sort of, rent you a small amount of space or rent you a certain amount of power. And there's also a lot of other kind of units that have their power included as well. So see if you can kind of, host your rigs in another centre. That might be an option for you as well. Okay, so now I'm going to share a few ideas for getting the best efficiency for running your mining rigs. So there's a couple of different things that you can do, and as I said before, you should have already been doing all of these already to get the best profitability and efficiency from your mining operations. But like I said, because it's been so good, a lot of people might have skipped some of these points. So here's a few suggestions that might be useful to you. If you have any old hardware, I would probably sell those off if you haven't done so already. So really, to get the best efficiency, you want to be using the latest hardware. So if you're using NVIDIA cards, the GTX 10 series range, or the Pascal cards, and if you're using AMD stuff, then you want to be using RX570s and 580s. You can of course use some of the other stuff as well, but you really want to be focusing your efforts on efficiency. Now, if you've got some old hardware, like a 7950 or something like that, 280X, those kind of series of cards, which is quite a few years old now, you're probably not going to be able to run those cards and make any money from them. So I would consider selling those cards off and either keeping that money as cash or reinvesting it into new, modern and more efficient GPUs. You should start seeing that they're coming onto the market now, significantly better price than what they have been. So that might be putting you off in the past because they were so expensive, but they're going to be coming onto the market at much better prices. So ditch your old cards and reinvest or keep that money aside for new ones. The next tip is bigger rigs are better. So you would have seen that most miners will kind of build quad rigs or 6 GPU rigs, and then more recently there's been different motherboard developments, so then you can build like 12 GPU rigs or also a 13 GPU rig as I built. So bigger rigs are better because they are more efficient. You put in kind of all your focus is on the GPUs. You're going to have less power supplies and a single motherboard CPU eating up that extra bit of power. So if you have the option to upgrade or reconfigure your rigs, make them as big as possible in terms of GPUs. So if you've already got some 6 GPU rigs, see if there's an option, can you make those into 7 or 8 GPU rigs? That's a really good option for you. It's going to increase your efficiency, and you probably save around 50 to 100 watts per rig if you can do that. So that's just a little efficiency tip for you. Okay, so the next one is specifically for AMD graphics card owners. So again, a lot of people would probably have skipped this because they're scared or concerned that it might cause problems. So if you haven't already BIOS modded your graphics cards and you have like a 570 or 580s series GPUs, you can also use it on the 560s as well, I would absolutely recommend that you BIOS mod your graphics cards. A lot of people have skipped it because they think it's too risky, but the process is really simple and you'll get a significant boost in performance. Now, AMD cards compared to the NVIDIA cards, running a lot of algorithms, are already sort of at a slight disadvantage anyway in terms of efficiency. So this BIOS mod will kind of improve the odds there. You would have seen in one of my sort of recent videos, my RX560s, that was getting like 12 mega hashes more than Ethereum, and we got that over 15 mega hashes. So a significant improvement for no extra power cost. And it's really simple to do. So BIOS mod your AMD graphics cards. It's essential. So next up, regardless if you have a AMD GPU or NVIDIA, you want to be overclocking your graphics cards. So again, a lot of people kind of put off by this because they think it can damage their cards, but that's really not true. I've had all of my graphics cards overclocked very highly for years, and it doesn't make any difference. It doesn't damage them. If a graphics card is going to fail, it's going to fail. It doesn't really matter whether you're overclocking or not. So you must overclock to get the best efficiency from your graphics card. It's really simple to do. I've got other videos from it. I'll link everything that you need in the description. But overclocking, again, will give you even better performance for the same, electricity usage. So top tip, you must overclock your graphics cards. There's no risk. Just do it, and you'll get great results. Further going on from the overclocking, in certain situations you might find that certain algorithms are more kind of memory dependent and less core dependent. So when you come to overclocking, quite commonly what you'll find is that if you overclock your memory timings, but reduce your core timings, you'll get the best efficiency from your graphics card. So not only will you get increased performance, you'll also reduce the power usage of your card. So that's all to do with like testing and tweaking. There's lots of different things that you can do. If you've got a particular graphics card, look through my videos and you kind of would see what my settings are to get the best performance from those. So just do a little bit of testing to see what you can get. But sometimes, like I say, increasing the memory but lowering the core clocks will get you a very good performance. So next up is undervolting and power limiting. So it's slightly different if you have an AMD or an Nvidia card, but I've got videos covering the process for doing both, whether you have whatever brand or manufacturer you have, sorry. So undervolting, typically you're going to be using that on your AMD GPUs. You have a core voltage essentially, and what you do is you just kind of move that down a few millivolts, and that means that the graphics card is going to be using less power. Again, you're going to be getting the same performance, but the graphics card is going to be using less power. It's also going to be running cooler as well, and cooler is obviously better. With your Nvidia GPUs, you have a slightly different process, and you can use a power limit feature. You can also use a power limit feature on the AMD GPUs as well. But essentially, you have a slider bar, and you can increase the power limit or you can reduce the power limit. With a lot of my GTX Nvidia cards, I've reduced the power limit to about 70%. That doesn't affect the graphics card performance in any way at all. The graphics card is still overclocked, I'm still getting the top performance, but the power is reduced by 30%, so that means it's more efficient. So use undervolting and power limit, use them both if you can. So it depends exactly on what graphics cards you have and also the software, but use them both if you can. That's going to get you, again, very good efficiency from your hardware. Okay, so just talking a little bit now about your kind of mining options. So if you've not done it already, I would highly recommend you guys check out either Coin Wars or What to Mine. Enter the characteristics from your GPUs or your GPU rigs. All you need to do is just kind of fill in the boxes. With What to Mine, they have a lot of kind of pre-populated boxes, so it's quite easy for you to kind of check your hashing performance on a bunch of different algorithms. Use that to kind of get your daily figures in terms of your profitability. Like I say on some of my recent videos, just comparing a GTX 1060 and mining Ethereum is currently the most profitable, and it roughly earns around about, I think it was about 75 cents in terms of revenue and about 30 cents, 32 cents in profit on a daily basis. But you need to use these sites or do your own calculations to work out exactly where the money is, what's profitable mining at any given time. It's different for you if you're kind of focused on a very specific coin and you're just going to be mining it for, until you decide otherwise. But if you are looking for good profits and returns on a consistent sort of basis, you need to go and check out those sites to see, what is performing good from one day to next. It can be a little bit of faffing around, changing your miners over from, mining Ethereum to then mining Monero and then mining Zcash. It can be a little bit of a faff to do that, but it's going to keep you kind of on the ball and getting the best returns overall on a day-by-day basis. And I think now that we're heading into these tougher times, you need to pay a lot more attention to what coins are mineable and profitable on basically a day-by-day basis. Okay, so one final strategy, and this is kind of a bit of an outsider, thinking outside the box. I've used it before, and sometimes it works well, and sometimes it doesn't work quite as well. So I'm going to call the term jackpotting. So what this is finding new coins that are kind of relatively unknown and they're not mined very much. So some of the other crypto guys would have had like really good results with this. I've had some good results with it from time to time as well. But essentially you are finding new coins and you are going to be mining them before they kind of get to mainstream or get to the crypto coin markets. So it was a couple of months back. I know a lot of people had good results with all the Zcash clones and forks. So there was Z Classic, Zencash, I think Hush, there's a couple of others as well. So a lot of people kind of moved their mining power from Zcash onto these other lesser known coins. They mined a bunch of those coins, kept them, and then just kind of waited for the market to turn around and then sold those coins off, and they made much bigger returns than if they were just going to continue sticking with Zcash. So be on the lookout for new coins and see what developments are happening. There is always changes in the market. A lot of coins are kind of they're already running on existing algorithms, so it's quite easy for you to kind of just switch your miners either just to another pool. It's quite a simple process for you guys to do that. And from time to time you'll get some big winners. A lot of the time you'll mine these coins, and I would recommend only if you're putting your mining power onto it, probably just mine for a day or two. You don't need to mine for a great deal of time, and just grab up a bunch of coins and then just kind of wait for the market to turn around. And every now and again, like I say, that's why I call it sort of jackpotting. Sometimes you'll get like a really big win. One coin will just absolutely take off. I think the Zencash was a good example of that. And then other times, you know, the coins will just kind of die off. So it's kind of a lost effort sometimes. But sometimes it can be incredibly rewarding. So look for those other coins, trying to determine which ones are going to be the good ones for the future. I'll keep you updated on that. You know, I do obviously the videos and sharing some of my new upcoming coins that I think are interesting. So look out for those as well. Okay, so that just about concludes this video. I've tried to kind of put quite a lot in there to hopefully share some tips, tricks and ideas for you to get the best returns from your mining efforts. So hopefully at least you found one or two bits in there that might be useful for you guys, and it's going to help out your mining efforts in the near future. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing. I really appreciate the community that we're building here, and you know, I'll continue to make these videos, and if you keep subscribing, that'd be awesome. That's win-win. Like it if you haven't already done so, and if you have any other tips, tricks or suggestions, put those in the comments area. Share your thoughts and ideas with the other members of the community, and you know, together I'm sure we'll get through this. Till next time guys, thanks very much for watching. I'll see you on the next video.